This is Fantasy Football Today from CBSSports.com.
All right, let's play Start 'em and Sit 'em for Fantasy Week 3. Welcome to a special edition of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. I'm Adam Azer. That's Jamie Eisenberg. That's Dave Richard. Dave will be the bearer of bad news today. He'll tell you who to sit at each position. Jamie, you get the start. So let's start out with a quarterback to start this week. RG3. People are actually sitting RG3 against Detroit, huh?
I think people are just a little bit nervous because he doesn't look like himself, but his fantasy numbers look great. He's been above 23 fantasy points each of his first 2 games, and this is a great matchup for him. So he will start to get better. You are not benching RG3. You got to have a really superstar backup to be sitting RG3. Maybe Michael Vick. That's something you can consider. But I'm starting RG3 this week. I think he's going to have another great game.
Dave, I really have to sit Russell Wilson against the Jacksonville Jaguars?
You know, you might look at the matchup and you see Jacksonville and their pitiful defense, and you'll go, oh, I can't wait to finally use Russell Wilson. But false start. Don't do it. You've got to go ahead and look inside the numbers a little bit. Russell Wilson won't have to throw very much in this game. If he does throw 2 touchdowns, it's not going to be with a lot of yardage. That's what I think is going to happen. He hasn't been a great passer so far this season, outside of 1 quarter against Carolina. Then he was pretty darn good, but they really needed him in that game to throw. They're not going to have him do it. You can go back and look at the games last year where the run game kind of did everything for Seattle. And Russell Wilson's just a guy you got to just sort of sit on and wait and see. I wouldn't use him this week, even if it's against Jacksonville.
What if I'm in a league we get points for handoffs?
Well, then I think you're in good shape.
Right. I love those. I'm in like 3 of those leagues.
Right.
Russell
No
Wilson's
one's
my
in
quarterback
any of those
in every
That's
league.
ridiculous.
No. And if you were
Nonsense.
in a league for points per carry, then Giovanni Bernard might not be that good. But luckily, we don't play in any of those leagues either. Now, he doesn't need that many carries to be productive. We saw that Monday night, and we're saying start him against the Packers.
Start of the week for CBSSports.com. I think you're looking at Giovanni Bernard, and he had his coming out party in that game against the Steelers in what should have been a tough matchup. But you know what? This guy has the potential to be a matchup buster week in, week out. He's got a great matchup this week against Green Bay. Clearly, the Packers have the ability to put up a big number offensively against the Bengals defense, which means we could see Cincinnati chasing points. They're not going to go with Jarvis Green-Ellis in that scenario. They're going to go with Giovanni Bernard. He has the opportunity to be on the field a lot more than we've seen through the first 2 games. And as we saw in that Monday night performance, he could be electric. So Giovanni Bernard actually ascends to a top 20 running back this week. He's almost a must-start based on his opportunity as matchup.
Dave, James Starks, obviously a lot of people wanted to add him this week. One guy in my league, $40 bid on James Starks, and now I'm supposed to say to him, you know what, sit James Starks this week. Not a good start?
No, I don't think it is. Now listen, a lot of people picked up James Starks because they were desperate for a running back. Maybe they think that Eddie Lacy is injury prone, and he kind of is, so maybe later on this season Starks will have some value. But I don't like the matchup this week against Cincinnati. The Bengals run defense has done a nice job against running backs, at least on handoffs and on carries. Through the air, they haven't been as strong, but Starks isn't necessarily a good receiver out of the backfield, and I think Jonathan Franklin could actually take a little bit of playing time away from him. Remember this, last week, James Starks, big breakout game, everybody was excited. It came against the Redskins, and Washington's defense is terrible. Cincinnati's is not. So I think James Starks is a guy, you got him, maybe you hang on to him, but you don't start him in week 3.
Now we know that San Francisco has a good defense. They are hosting Indianapolis this week. T.Y. Hilton, Jamie, actually saying start T.Y. Hilton this week at wide receiver.
Yeah, it looks like Darius Hayward-Bay is going to play this week, but even if he does, the Colts realize what they have to do and what they have in T.Y. Hilton. That's get him the ball, get him more targets. We saw it in week 2 as opposed to week 1. He put up a huge game against the Miami Dolphins. Now you're looking at San Francisco and you're saying, wow, they just got beat really badly against Seattle. Their defense has to be a little angry, a little motivated. I don't care. If we get Nnamdi Asomugha matched up against T.Y. Hilton, that's a win all day for T.Y. Hilton. And clearly Andrew Luck is going to focus on getting T.Y. Hilton the ball. They have to keep him involved. They have to keep him a significant part of this offense. And if Hayward-Bay is out for whatever reason, that's only going to elevate T.Y. Hilton a little bit more. So you can look at T.Y. Hilton as a very quality number 2 guy, but definitely somebody you should get in your lineup, whether it's at the flex, 3 receiver leagues. It's hard to keep this guy benched.
Dave, you're all over this Jacksonville-Seattle game. Let's say sit Cecil Shorts.
Yeah, and Shorts had a decent week in week 2, and that was with Chad Henne at quarterback, and we were excited to see that because Chad Henne does good things for his receivers. And even though Jacksonville's going to be playing from behind in this game, they should throw a lot in this game, I don't want to trust Cecil Shorts when he's going up against a secondary that features Richard Sherman, Brandon Browner, Walter Thurman. The list goes on and on. They've got great safeties there, too. I just feel like this is a good week to get away from Cecil Shorts and not have to worry about any risk about starting him here and go for a different receiver on your roster.
And finally, a couple of tight ends, one to start and one to sit. Jordan Cameron is a start this week.
Yeah, it's a little risky to start Jordan Cameron because of the quarterback situation in Cleveland. Brandon Whedon's out. And you would look at Brandon Whedon and you say, well, he's not really that great a quarterback. I'd rather have Brandon Whedon
Yeah.
than who they're starting this week, which is Brian Hoyer. So you have to worry if Hoyer can keep Cameron involved like we've seen the first 2 games. Obviously, he was dominant against the Dolphins, played really well against a good Baltimore defense, and now he's facing what should be a great matchup because Minnesota through 2 games has really struggled with tight ends. So I still think Cameron is worth starting based on the matchup and based on the overall tight end landscape. If you have a better option, you might want to go the other option, but Jordan Cameron to me still shapes up as a top 12 guy.
Brandon Myers, Dave. Sit Brandon Myers at the Panthers?
Yeah, it's just not a very exciting matchup for Brandon Myers, and I think there's enough tight ends out there where people can now either hit the waiver wire and pick up a Kobe Fleener or go with a guy that they already picked up off waivers like a Julius Thomas, maybe even a Jordan Cameron, and start them ahead of Myers, who just, for whatever reason, I know he had a good week 1, not as good in week 2. I think it kind of continues in week 3.
All right, rankings, projections, Jamie's starter sit column, podcasts, all that. FantasyNews.cbssports.com. Check it out. For Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg, I'm Adam Azer. This has been a special edition of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports.